The first thing Deandra noticed when she opened the app on her phone was the timestamp, 10:23 a.m. She had left for work at 7:45 that morning, dropped their daughter Zara off at kindergarten like she did every day, and told her baby daddy, JJ, she'd pick up groceries on her way home. He had been half asleep on the couch, barely mumbling a response, still in the same spot he'd been in when she went to bed the night before. She'd kissed Zara's forehead, grabbed her work bag, and walked out believing she had a normal co-parenting situation. Now sitting at her desk during lunch break at 1:15 p.m., scrolling through the Nanny cam footage out of habit. She'd installed the cameras 3 years ago when Zara was 2, after their neighbor's apartment got broken into. JJ knew about them. They both checked them sometimes when Deandra was at work to see if Zara was okay with the babysitter or if JJ remembered to lock the front door. It made Deandra feel like she had some control over what happened when she wasn't there. But JJ must have forgotten about the one in the bedroom. Or maybe he thought Deandra would never check it during the day. Or maybe he just didn't care anymore. At 10:23 a.m., the bedroom door opened. JJ walked in, but he wasn't alone. A woman followed him. A woman with honey-colored box braids wearing a navy wrap dress. She laughing at something JJ had said. A woman Deandra recognized immediately because she'd helped her pick out that exact dress at Nordstrom Rack last month. Valerie Sullivan. Her best friend since their sophomore year at Howard. The woman who'd held Deandra's hand in the delivery room when JJ was too squeamish to stay. The woman who had a key to their condo and knew the Wi-Fi password. The woman their daughter called Auntie Val. Valerie reached for JJ's hand and pulled him toward the bed. Their bed. The bed with the gray duvet cover Deandra had bought from Target because JJ said the old one was too feminine. The bed where Deandra slept every single night, where she read Zara bedtime stories when the little girl had nightmares, where she folded laundry every Sunday while JJ played video games in the living room. Deandra's hand started shaking so badly she almost dropped her phone. She wanted to stop watching, wanted to close the app and pretend she'd never seen it. But she couldn't. She sat frozen at her desk in the open-plan office, watching JJ kiss Valerie, watching him pull that navy dress over her head, watching him lay her best friend down on their bed, watching him betray 7 years of building a life together and a friendship that went back even longer. The footage was clear, too clear. The camera angle captured everything. She could see the way he touched Valerie, the way he smiled at her, the way he looked at her with an intensity Deandra hadn't seen directed at herself in years. Or maybe he'd looked at Deandra that way once, back when they first got together in college, before the surprise pregnancy, before the sleepless nights and unpaid bills, before he stopped trying and she started carrying everything alone. But this wasn't about passion fading. This was about him choosing her best friend. Deandra watched for 19 minutes. 19 minutes that shattered everything she thought she knew about the two people she trusted most in the world. When it was over, when JJ and Valerie got dressed and left the bedroom, Deandra finally moved. She gasped for air like she'd been underwater. Her chest felt tight. Her throat burned. Everything hurt. She wanted to scream. She wanted to drive home right now and confront both of them. She wanted to call JJ and curse him out, call Valerie and ask how she could do this. She wanted to know how long this had been going on, why they would betray her like this, whether they laughed about her behind her back. But instead, she sat at her desk in the Policy Institute, surrounded by colleagues typing away at their own computers, and let silent tears roll down her face for exactly 5 minutes. Then she stopped crying. She pulled a compact mirror from her desk drawer and fixed her makeup, wiping away the mascara that had smudged under her eyes. She took 3 deep breaths and went back to scrolling through the footage. This happened today. Maybe it had happened before. Maybe there was more. She needed to know everything before she did anything. She went back 1 week. Same thing. 10:31 a.m. JJ and Valerie in their bedroom, in their bed, acting like Deandra didn't exist. Like the life she'd built didn't matter. Like 7 years of love and trust and holding everything together while he barely contributed meant nothing. 2 weeks back. Same woman, same bed, same betrayal. Valerie's laugh echoing in the bedroom while Deandra was at work trying to earn enough to cover rent and daycare and groceries because JJ's gig economy jobs never quite added up to a full paycheck. Deandra went back through 6 weeks of footage. It happened almost every week, sometimes on weekdays when Zara was at school, once on a Saturday morning when Deandra had taken Zara to her mother's house for the day. Always the same woman. Her best friend. The woman she'd texted just last night about their daughter's upcoming birthday party. The woman who'd responded with 3 heart emojis and "can't wait. Love you both." Deandra felt sick. She pushed her lunch container away, the chicken Caesar salad suddenly revolting. She breathed slowly through her nose, trying not to throw up in the open office. Her phone buzzed with a text message. She looked down at the screen. It was from JJ. "Yo, you picking up Zara today, or you want me to get her? Also, we're out of milk." No punctuation. No capitals. No please or thank you, or any acknowledgement that she handled pickup 90% of the time while he couldn't even remember to buy milk. The casual disrespect of the message after what she'd just watched made her want to throw her phone across the office. Her fingers moved across the screen before her brain could stop them. She typed back, "I'll get her. I'll grab milk too." She hit send and immediately felt disgusted with herself. But she couldn't let him know that she knew. Not yet. She needed time to think, time to plan, time to figure out how to protect her daughter and get both of these people out of her life without losing everything she'd worked for. Another text came through. This time from Valerie. "Hey babe. Want to grab drinks Friday after work? I need to vent about this guy I've been seeing, weary face." The audacity. The absolute audacity of this woman to text her about a guy while she was sleeping with Deandra's partner. While she was betraying their entire friendship. While she was playing auntie to a little girl whose family she was actively destroying. Deandra stared at the message for a full minute. Then she typed back, "Yes. I could use a girls' night. Things have been crazy." She added a wine glass emoji and hit send. If Valerie wanted to play games, Deandra would play along. But she'd be playing to win. She sat at her desk for another hour, staring at her computer screen without seeing the policy brief she was supposed to be reviewing. She was a smart woman. She had a master's degree in public policy from Georgetown. She'd built a solid career as a policy analyst, working her way up while raising a child largely on her own. She made decent money, paid all the bills, managed everything. She was independent and capable. But right now, she felt like a fool. How had she not seen this coming? Had there been signs? Had Valerie been too eager to help with Zara, too available, too interested in their daily schedule? Had JJ been more distant than usual, or was he always this checked out? Was she a bad partner? Not attractive enough? Not fun enough? Not enough, period? No. She stopped that spiral immediately. This wasn't her fault. She had been a good partner. She'd loved JJ, supported him when he couldn't hold down a job, tolerated his excuses, stayed with him for Zara's sake even when her mother told her to leave years ago. She had done nothing wrong. This was all on JJ and Valerie. They were the ones who chose to lie. They were the ones who chose to betray her. They were the ones who destroyed what little family stability Zara had, and they would pay for it. She didn't know exactly how yet, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was not going to be the crying baby mama who begged him to stay. She was not going to be the fool who forgave them and pretended it never happened. She was not going to be the woman who lost her home, her daughter, and her dignity because two selfish people decided their wants mattered more than a child's well-being. She was going to be the one who came out on top. She was going to be the one who walked away with custody, with her home, with her reputation intact. And JJ and Valerie were going to lose everything that mattered. Deandra left work at exactly 5 p.m. and picked Zara up from the after-school program. Her daughter ran to her with a painting she'd made, all bright colors and stick figures. "That's you, Mommy, and that's Daddy, and that's Auntie Val, and that's me." Deandra's heart cracked looking at the picture, but she smiled and kissed Zara's forehead. "It's beautiful, baby. We'll put it on the fridge when we get home." When she walked through the door of their condo at 5:45 p.m., JJ was exactly where she'd left him that morning, on the couch playing video games. He glanced up when they came in. "Hey, what's for dinner?" Not "how was your day?" Not "let me help with the groceries." Not "I'll start cooking." Just an assumption that she would handle it like she handled everything. "I was thinking pasta," Deandra said, her voice steady. She set the grocery bags on the kitchen counter and started unpacking them while Zara settled at the dining table with coloring books. JJ grunted and went back to his game. Deandra made dinner. She helped Zara with her homework. She gave Zara a bath, read her 3 stories, and tucked her into bed with her favorite stuffed elephant. The whole time, she moved through the routine like a woman on autopilot, smiling when she was supposed to smile, answering Zara's endless questions about butterflies and rainbows and whether dinosaurs could swim. When she came back to the living room, JJ was still gaming. She sat on the opposite end of the couch and opened her laptop, pretending to work on emails. "You good?" JJ asked without looking at her. "Yeah, just tired. Long day." "You're always tired," he muttered. She wanted to scream at him that she was tired because she did everything, because she was the only adult in this household, because he contributed nothing but criticism and infidelity. Instead, she said nothing and kept typing. Around 11 p.m., JJ finally turned off the PlayStation and stretched. "I'm going to bed. I'll be there in a bit. Want to finish this email." He didn't kiss her goodnight. Didn't even look back as he walked to the bedroom. Once she heard the bedroom door close, Deandra moved quickly. She pulled out her personal laptop, the one JJ never touched because he said it was too old and slow. She opened the Nanny Cam app and started systematically downloading every video file from the past 3 months. The bedroom camera. The living room camera. The front door camera. Everything. It took 2 hours, but she got it all. She saved everything to an external hard drive she kept hidden in her work bag, then made a backup copy on a cloud storage account JJ didn't know existed. She wasn't taking any chances. While the files downloaded, she went through their shared tablet, the one they used for household stuff. JJ had his email logged in. She'd never snooped before because she trusted him, but trust was dead now. Most of the emails were junk. Promotional offers. Confirmation codes for food delivery apps. But then she found a folder he'd labeled bills, which seemed strange because JJ never paid bills. She opened it. Inside were dozens of text message screenshots forwarded to his email. Messages between JJ and Valerie going back 5 months. 5 months of "I can't stop thinking about you," and "when can I see you again?" And "this morning was amazing." 5 months of planning their meetups around Deandra's work schedule. 5 months of Valerie asking does she suspect anything, and JJ responding nah, she's clueless. Too busy with work to notice. The words "she's clueless" made something cold and hard settle in Deandra's chest. She kept reading. Valerie knew everything. She knew about Deandra and JJ's relationship problems, knew that JJ complained about feeling trapped by fatherhood, knew that he said Deandra was boring now and always stressed. She knew all of it because JJ had told her, and she'd responded with sympathy and flirtation and offers to make him feel better. There were also messages about Zara. Valerie texting, "Just took Z to the park. She's so sweet," followed by "Can't wait to see you after I drop her off." Using their daughter as cover for their affair. Taking Zara to the playground so she could circle back and sleep with JJ. Pretending to be the loving auntie while destroying that child's family. Deandra's hands clenched into fists. She closed the tablet before she threw it across the room. She sat in the dim living room, the only light coming from her laptop screen, and let herself feel the full weight of the betrayal. Not just from JJ, which hurt but didn't entirely surprise her given how checked out he'd been for years, but from Valerie, her sister friend, the woman who'd been her maid of honor at her commitment ceremony before Zara was born. The woman who knew every secret, every fear, every dream Deandra had. Valerie had looked her in the eye dozens of times over the past 5 months. She had come to their home for dinner, FaceTimed with Zara before bedtime, had texted Deandra asking for advice about her own dating problems. All while sleeping with JJ in Deandra's bed, in Deandra's home, sometimes just hours after hugging Deandra goodbye. The violation of it was almost worse than the affair itself. Deandra closed her laptop and sat in the darkness. She could hear JJ snoring in the bedroom, peaceful and untroubled. He had no guilt keeping him awake. No stress, no worry. He thought he was getting away with it. He thought she was too busy, too stressed, too focused on work and Zara to notice what was happening in her own home. He had no idea that the woman he dismissed as clueless was about to become the smartest decision he'd ever regret underestimating. Deandra didn't call in sick to work the next morning. She couldn't afford to. She had too much to do, and she needed to maintain absolute normalcy. JJ left at 10 a.m. for a job interview that Deandra now suspected was probably a meetup with Valerie. She dropped Zara at school, went to work, and scheduled an appointment during her lunch break. The appointment was with Nanny Foster, a family law attorney whose name she had found on a legal aid website at 2 a.m. the previous night. Nanny came highly recommended for custody cases involving unmarried parents. Deandra sat in Nanny's office at 12:30 p.m., hands folded in her lap, voice steady as she explained the situation. She showed Nanny the video footage on her phone. Showed her the text messages. Explained the living situation and the fact that only her name was on the lease. Nanny watched everything with the expression of someone who'd seen this exact scenario too many times. When Deandra finished, Nanny leaned back in her chair. "First, I'm sorry you're going through this. Second, you're in a better legal position than you think." Nanny opened a legal pad and started making notes. "You're not married, which means no divorce, just custody arrangements and potentially child support. Your name is on the lease, all the utilities, correct?" "Yes. Everything. I've been paying all the bills for years." "Good. That means you can legally evict him with proper notice. In D.C., that's 30 days for month-to-month tenancy. He has no legal claim to your home." Nanny tapped her pen on the pad. "Now, custody. You have documentation of his infidelity occurring in the home where your child lives. You have evidence of his minimal financial contribution, and I'm guessing you handle most of the actual parenting." "All of it. I do school drop-off and pick-up, doctor's appointments, parent-teacher conferences, everything. He babysits when I ask, but that's it." "He's not babysitting. He's parenting his own child, or he's supposed to be." Nanny's expression was sharp. "Document everything from here on out. Every time he misses a pickup, every time he doesn't show up for something important, every time he chooses his affair over his daughter. We'll need it for custody. What about Valerie? Can I do anything about her? Lene considered. Legally, she hasn't broken any laws. But if she has an employer with a morality clause or professional standards, well, that's between her and her employer. If you happen to inform them of the situation, that's your right as long as what you tell them is true. Deandra absorbed all of this. So I have to wait 30 days to get him out? You have to give 30 days notice. But I'd recommend not showing your hand until you've gathered everything you need. The element of surprise is your friend here. If he knows you're planning to evict him, he might try to establish tenancy rights or create problems. Wait until you're ready, then hit him with everything at once. How long do I have to pretend everything is fine? Lene's expression softened slightly. As long as it takes to protect yourself and your daughter. I know it's not fair. But strategic patience will serve you better than immediate confrontation. Deandra left Lene's office with a legal retainer agreement signed and a plan forming in her mind. She had 3 weeks to get everything in order. 3 weeks to document, to prepare, to position herself for victory. 3 weeks of sleeping next to a man who thought she was too stupid to notice he was destroying their family. She could do 3 weeks. She'd survived 7 years with him. She could survive 3 more weeks of performance. That evening, Valerie texted asking about Friday drinks. Deandra confirmed. Can't wait. Meet you at Bar Charlie at 7. Valerie responded with enthusiasm. Perfect. Miss you, babe. Deandra stared at the heart emoji for a long moment. Then she liked the message and put her phone away. If they wanted to play her for a fool, she'd let them. But every text, every lie, every performance was evidence. And when the time came, she'd have enough evidence to bury them both. Deandra took a personal day on Thursday, something she never did. In 5 years at the Policy Institute, she'd used maybe 4 sick days total. And those were when Zara had the flu and couldn't go to school. But this morning, she emailed her supervisor at 6 a.m. saying she had a personal matter to handle and would make up the hours over the weekend. JJ didn't even notice. He was still asleep when she dropped Zara at school, still asleep when she left the house at 9:30 a.m. wearing her best interview suit, the charcoal gray one with a structured blazer that made her feel like she could handle anything. Lene Foster's office was in a modest building near DuPont Circle, the kind of place that didn't waste money on marble lobbies but invested in results. Deandra had found her name on a legal forum at 2 in the morning 3 days ago, after hours of searching for family law attorneys who specialized in unmarried parent custody cases. The reviews all said the same thing: Lene Foster didn't sugarcoat anything, didn't promise miracles, and didn't lose often. The receptionist led Deandra to a corner office where Lene sat behind a desk covered in case files and yellow legal pads. She was a black woman in her early 50s with silver locks pulled back in a neat bun and glasses that sat low on her nose. She looked up when Deandra entered and gestured to the chair across from her. They didn't waste time on small talk. Deandra had sent over a summary of her situation when she booked the appointment, so Lene already knew the basics. Now Deandra pulled out her phone and showed her the video footage, the timestamps, the downloaded files organized in folders by date. She showed her screenshots of the text messages between JJ and Valerie, showed her the email forwards JJ had saved, showed her bank statements proving she paid every bill. Lene watched it all with the expression of someone who'd seen this exact story play out in dozens of variations. When Deandra finished, Lene removed her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. First, I'm sorry. What they did to you is a betrayal on multiple levels, and you have every right to be angry. Second, You're in a stronger legal position than most women who come through that door. Lene opened a fresh legal pad and uncapped a pen. You're not married, which actually works in your favor here. No divorce means no splitting assets, no alimony, no joint property disputes. This is strictly about custody and getting him out of your home. Deandra felt something loosen in her chest. So he can't claim the condo? Not if your name is the only one on the lease. You've been paying rent, utilities, everything. Lene looked up from her notes. Everything. For years. His name isn't on anything. Then legally, he's a guest in your home. You can evict him with 30 days written notice. In D.C., that's the law for month-to-month tenancy situations. Lene wrote something down. Now custody is more complex. Courts default to what's in the best interest of the child, and they generally favor maintaining relationships with both parents unless there's abuse or neglect. Deandra's stomach dropped. So even with everything he's done, he could still get joint custody? He could try. But here's where your documentation matters. Lene tapped her pen against the pad. You have proof of infidelity occurring in the home where your daughter lives. You have proof of financial irresponsibility. And I'm guessing you handle all the actual parenting responsibilities, correct? School, medical appointments, daily care. All of it. He babysits when I have to work late, but that's the extent of it. Lene's mouth tightened. He's not babysitting his own child. He's parenting, or he should be. The fact that you use that word tells me everything I need to know about the division of labor in your household. She made another note. From this moment forward, document everything. Every missed pickup, every forgotten school event, every time he prioritizes his affair over his daughter. Keep a log with dates and times. Save every text message. If he fails to show up for something, document it. This will be crucial when we go before a judge. What about Valerie? Can I do anything legally? Lene considered the question carefully. She hasn't committed a crime. But if she has an employer, particularly one with professional standards or morality clauses, that's between her and them. If you choose to inform her employer about the situation using factual information you can prove, that's your right. Just make sure everything you say is true and documented. Deandra absorbed this information, her mind already working through the logistics. How long before I can serve him with eviction papers? You can do it tomorrow if you want, but I'd advise against moving too quickly. Lene leaned forward, her expression serious. The element of surprise is your biggest advantage. If he knows you're planning to evict him, he might try to establish tenancy rights, hide income, or create problems with custody. My recommendation is to take the next few weeks to gather every piece of evidence you need, get all your financial affairs separated, secure anything valuable, and prepare for him to retaliate. Then, when you're completely ready, you hit him with everything at once. Eviction notice, custody filing, the works. So I have to keep pretending everything is normal? Deandra asked. For a few more weeks, yes. I know that's not fair. I know it's asking you to perform a role that makes you sick. But strategic patience will protect you and your daughter better than immediate confrontation. Lene's voice was gentle but firm. Can you do that? Deandra thought about Zara's face when she'd shown her the painting yesterday. Thought about her daughter's stability, her home, her future. She thought about 7 years of carrying everything while JJ coasted, 7 years of making excuses for him, 7 years of believing she had to stay for Zara's sake. Yes, I can do that. Over the next 3 weeks, Deandra became a different person. Not on the outside, where she remained the same accommodating woman JJ and Valerie thought they knew, but on the inside, where she was building a fortress they'd never see coming. The first thing she did was open a new bank account at a different bank across town, one JJ had never heard of. She went during her lunch break on Friday, dressed in her work clothes, and opened a checking and savings account in her name only. The following Monday, she rerouted her direct deposit. By the end of the week, her paycheck landed in an account JJ didn't know existed. She left just enough money in their joint account to cover the bills she'd always paid anyway. Rent, utilities, Zara's school expenses, groceries. JJ never checked the balance because he never contributed to it, so he wouldn't notice the difference. But now her real money was safe, untouchable, separate. Next came the passwords. Email, social media, streaming services, cloud storage, everything. She changed them all, one by one, using a password manager JJ would never think to look for. She enabled two-factor authentication on everything. She moved important documents, Zara's birth certificate, her own passport, her lease agreement, her tax returns, to a locked filing box she kept in her office at work. Then came the documentation. Nanny had told her to keep a log, so she did. She created a spreadsheet on her personal laptop with dates, times, and detailed notes. October 15th, JJ forgot to pick up Zara from after-school program. Called me at work at 5:45 p.m. I had to leave a meeting to get her. October 18th, parent-teacher conference scheduled for 4 p.m. JJ said he'd go. Didn't show up. Teacher asked where he was. October 22nd, Zara had a dentist appointment at 3:30 p.m. JJ was supposed to take her. Called me at 3:15 p.m. saying he forgot. I had to reschedule. October 24th, school fall festival. JJ said he'd come. Never showed. Zara kept asking where Daddy was. Every failure, every broken promise, every time he chose his phone or his games or his affair over his daughter, Deandra wrote it down. She saved text messages where he made excuses. She kept emails from Zara's teacher asking why only one parent ever attended conferences. She photographed the permission slips she signed alone, the medical forms that only had her signature, the emergency contact cards that listed her number twice because JJ's phone was always dead or ignored. The hardest part was Valerie. Deandra had to keep up the friendship, had to smile and hug and pretend everything was normal while rage burned beneath her skin. They met for lunch on a Wednesday at a cafe near Deandra's office, and Deandra wore a blazer with a pen in the pocket, a pen that was actually a recording device she'd ordered online. Valerie talked about work, about some argument with her supervisor, about how stressed she was. Then she started talking about the guy she was seeing, the one she'd mentioned in texts. "It's complicated," Valerie said, picking at her salad. "We have to be really careful about when we see each other." "Why is that?" Deandra asked, her voice perfectly casual. "He's got a lot going on. Responsibilities, you know? We have to work around his schedule." "When do you usually see him?" "Mostly weekday mornings. He's free then." Deandra thought about the nanny cam footage, all those weekday mornings, all those timestamps. That's kind of unusual. Most people work mornings. Valerie shrugged. "He's got a flexible situation. Anyway, enough about him. How are things with you and JJ?" "Same as always," Deandra said, and it wasn't even a lie. She asked Valerie about specific dates, casual questions disguised as trying to remember when they'd last gotten together. Valerie lied smoothly about where she'd been, what she'd done, who she'd been with. Every lie was captured on the recording device in Deandra's pocket, every contradiction noted and time-stamped. By the third week, Deandra had everything she needed. evidence, documentation, financial separation, legal representation. She'd arranged for Zara to spend the weekend at her mother's house, told JJ it was because her mother wanted quality time with her granddaughter. He'd barely looked up from his game when she mentioned it. She set the date, Saturday, November 11th. She invited her brother Curtis and her cousin Melody to come by that morning, told them she needed witnesses for something important but didn't explain what. They agreed without hesitation. Through it all, Deandra remained calm. Pleasant, even. She made dinner every night. She kissed JJ on the cheek when she left for work. She texted Valerie about nothing important. She smiled at her daughter and read bedtime stories and kept everything normal. But inside, she was counting down. 3 weeks became 2 weeks, became 1 week, became days. JJ and Valerie had no idea what was coming. They thought she was clueless, too busy, too tired to notice. They had gotten comfortable in their betrayal, careless in their lies. That comfort would be their downfall. Saturday morning arrived cold and clear, the kind of November day where the sky looked scrubbed clean. Deandra had dropped Zara at her mother's house the night before, staying for dinner and pretending everything was fine. Her mother had looked at her carefully, the way mothers do when they sense something beneath the surface, but she hadn't asked questions. She just hugged Deandra extra long at the door and told her to call if she needed anything. Now Deandra stood in her own living room at 9 a.m., dressed in jeans and a sweater, her laptop set up on the coffee table. Curtis and Melody had arrived 15 minutes earlier, both confused but loyal. They sat on the couch, waiting. JJ shuffled out of the bedroom at 9:30 a.m., still in pajama pants and a wrinkled t-shirt. He looked at Curtis and Melody with vague confusion. What's going on? He scratched his stomach and headed toward the kitchen. I need to talk to you, Deandra said, her voice calm. Sit down. Something in her tone made him pause. He looked at her, then at her brother and cousin, then back at her. What's this about? Sit down and you'll find out. He sat in the armchair, suddenly wary. Where's Zara? At my mother's house. Safe. The word safe hung in the air like a warning. JJ's eyes narrowed, but before he could speak, there was a knock at the door. Deandra walked over and opened it. Valerie stood there holding a cardboard tray with coffee cups, wearing yoga pants and a bright smile. Hey girl, I brought lattes. JJ texted me to come by this morning because he said you wanted to talk about Zara's birthday party and... Her voice trailed off as she saw Curtis and Melody on the couch. Saw JJ sitting rigid in the armchair. Saw Deandra's face, cold and empty of the warmth that had always been there before. Come in, Valerie. Deandra said. You're right on time. Valerie stepped inside slowly, the smile fading. She set the coffee tray on the side table with shaking hands. What's happening right now? Deandra closed the door and locked it. She walked to the coffee table and opened her laptop. I'm going to show you something. Both of you. I want Curtis and Melody here as witnesses to your reactions. She pressed play on the first video file. The nanny cam footage filled the screen. The bedroom. The timestamp, October 3rd, 10:47 a.m. JJ and Valerie walking in, kissing, pulling at each other's clothes. Valerie made a sound like she'd been punched. JJ's face went from confused to pale to gray in the span of seconds. Deandra let it play for 30 seconds, then paused it. She pulled up another file. October 10th. Another. October 17th. Another. September 28th. She didn't let them play long, just enough to show the pattern, the frequency, the deliberate betrayal. Stop, Valerie whispered. Please stop. Deandra closed the laptop. She looked at them both with the kind of calm that came from 3 weeks of preparation, 3 weeks of crying alone in her car during lunch breaks, 3 weeks of sleeping next to a man who thought she was too stupid to notice. "JJ, this is your eviction notice." She handed him an envelope. "You have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. These are custody papers, already filed with the court. You'll be hearing from my attorney about visitation arrangements." JJ stared at the envelope like it might explode. "You can't just kick me out. I live here. I have rights. Your name isn't on the lease. You pay no bills. You contribute nothing financially to this household. I have 6 months of video evidence showing you bringing your affair partner into our daughter's home, into our bed, while I was at work supporting this family." Deandra's voice never rose, never wavered. "You have no rights to this home. You have parental rights to Zara, which will work out through the courts. But you and I are done." She turned to Valerie, who was crying now, mascara running down her face. "You need to leave. Our friendship is over. Don't contact me, don't come to this building, don't speak to me if you see me in public. We're done." "Deandra, please let me explain," Valerie started. "Explain what?" "I have recordings of you lying to my face. I have videos of you in my bed. I have text messages between you two laughing about how clueless I am." Deandra's composure finally cracked, just slightly, her voice sharpening. "You played auntie to my daughter while destroying her family. There's nothing you can say that I want to hear. Leave." Valerie looked at JJ, desperate for backup, but he was staring at the eviction notice with his mouth open. She grabbed her purse and fled, the door slamming behind her. JJ finally looked up. "Baby, we can fix this. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything." "Don't," Deandra said quietly. "Don't insult me more than you already have. You have 30 days. Use them wisely." Curtis and Melody sat silent on the couch, witnesses to the moment everything changed. The confrontation happened on Saturday. By Monday morning, Deandra was at her desk at the Policy Institute, composed and professional, running on 4 hours of sleep and pure determination. JJ had spent the weekend alternating between rage and pleading, between threats and apologies, but Deandra had locked herself in the bedroom with her laptop and ignored every word. Now she opened her work email and composed a message she'd been drafting in her head for 2 days. The recipient was Sharon Hughes, Executive Director of Family First DC, the nonprofit where Valerie worked as an administrative coordinator. Deandra had looked up the organization's mission statement online, supporting vulnerable families in the DC metro area through advocacy, resources, and community building. The irony was so sharp it could cut. Deandra kept the email brief and factual. She explained that she was writing to inform the organization about conduct involving one of their employees that directly contradicted their stated mission. She attached time-stamped video evidence, date-stamped text messages, and a simple statement. Valerie Sullivan had conducted a months-long affair with Deandra's partner in their shared home, often immediately after babysitting their 5-year-old daughter. She had used childcare as cover for infidelity, had lied repeatedly to Deandra's face while pretending to be a trusted friend and family figure, and had actively participated in destabilizing a family with a young child. Deandra wrote that she believed an organization dedicated to family services should be aware of these actions. She signed her full name, included her work contact information, and hit send before she could second-guess herself. The response came within 6 hours. Sharon Hughes called Deandra directly, her voice professional but concerned. She thanked Deandra for bringing this to her attention, apologized for what Deandra was going through, and said the matter would be investigated immediately. She didn't promise any specific action, but her tone made it clear this wasn't being dismissed. By Wednesday, Valerie was on administrative leave. By Friday, according to a mutual friend who still spoke to Deandra, Valerie had been quietly let go. No dramatic firing, no public announcement, just a severance package and a suggestion that she find employment elsewhere. The mutual friends were harder to navigate. Deandra had known this would happen, had prepared for it during those 3 weeks of strategic silence. Some people would believe JJ and Valerie's version of events, would paint Deandra as the vindictive ex who couldn't let go, the angry woman who overreacted to a mistake. So Deandra didn't leave it to interpretation. She reached out to their closest friends, the people who'd been at Zara's birthday parties and holiday dinners, the people who actually mattered. She sent them the same evidence she'd sent to Valerie's employer, the same timestamps and messages and irrefutable proof. She didn't editorialize. She didn't rant or cry or beg them to take her side. She simply said, "This is what happened. This is why JJ is moving out. This is why Valerie and I are no longer friends. I wanted you to hear the truth from me." Most of them responded with shock and support. A few went silent, uncomfortable with being forced to choose sides. 2, friends who'd always been closer to JJ anyway, sent messages defending him. People make mistakes. You're being cruel going after Valerie's job. This is between you and JJ, why drag everyone else into it? Deandra blocked them without responding. She didn't have the energy to explain that this wasn't about dragging people into anything. This was about protecting herself and her daughter from a narrative where she became the villain in someone else's love story. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, drop a comment below. Sometimes knowing you're not alone in this kind of pain makes all the difference. And if you're going through something similar right now, remember, documentation is power, and silence is strategy. By the end of that first week, the battle lines were drawn. JJ was scrambling to find an apartment he could afford on his inconsistent income. Valerie had stopped posting on social media entirely. And Deandra was still standing, still working, still parenting, still moving forward. But the war was far from over. JJ had 30 days to move out, and he was going to make every single one of them difficult. And Valerie, despite losing her job, wasn't quite ready to accept that her actions had consequences. What happened next would test everything Deandra had built. JJ moved out on December 3rd, 2 days before his 30-day notice expired. He took his PlayStation, his clothes, and the flat-screen TV Deandra had bought last year. He left behind dirty dishes in the sink, trash bags he'd never taken out, and a forwarding address for a studio apartment in Southeast DC that he was sharing with someone he'd met on a roommate finder app. The first scheduled visitation was supposed to happen that following Saturday. Deandra had Zara's overnight bag packed, had explained to her daughter that she'd be spending the day with Daddy at his new place. Zara had been excited, asking if she could bring her favorite stuffed elephant. JJ texted at 9:47 a.m., 20 minutes before pickup, "Can't make it today. Something came up with work. I'll get her next weekend." There was no work. There was never work, just excuses and gig apps he'd scroll through without actually accepting jobs. Deandra stared at the text message, at her daughter's disappointed face when she explained that plans had changed, and added it to her documentation log. The second missed visitation came 2 weeks later. This time JJ didn't even text until after the scheduled time had passed. "Sorry, not feeling good. Rain check." Deandra forwarded both messages to Nanny Foster without comment. Meanwhile, Valerie had returned to social media with a vengeance. She posted quotes about betrayal and fake friends, about women who tear other women down instead of building them up. She posted photos of herself looking thin and exhausted with captions about fighting through the darkness and surviving toxic people. It might have worked if their mutual friends hadn't already seen the evidence. Within hours of Valerie's first post, screenshots started circulating. Screenshots of the nanny cam footage timestamps, screenshots of her text messages with JJ, screenshots of Deandra's calm, factual explanation of what had happened. Someone, Deandra never found out who, commented directly on one of Valerie's posts, "You're not the victim here. Stop performing." Valerie deleted her Instagram account the next day. Deandra barely noticed. She was too busy rebuilding. She threw herself into work with a kind of focus that came from needing to prove she wasn't broken, wasn't defeated, wasn't the mess JJ and Valerie probably hoped she'd become. When the senior policy advisor position opened up in late December, she applied. When she got the interview in January, she walked in prepared with 3 policy proposals she developed on her own time. When they offered her the promotion 2 weeks later with a 20% salary increase, she accepted without hesitation. She also started therapy. Once a week, Wednesday evenings after she picked up Zara, she'd drop her daughter at her mother's house and drive to a therapist's office in Bethesda. Dr. Patricia Chen specialized in trauma and betrayal, and she didn't let Deandra minimize what had happened or rush past the grief to get to the anger. "You're allowed to fall apart," Dr. Chen said during their 3rd session. "You don't have to be strong every second of every day." So Deandra cried in that office, the kind of crying she couldn't do at home where Zara might hear, the kind that left her exhausted and somehow lighter. But the best part of rebuilding came on Saturdays. Deandra started taking Zara to Rock Creek Park every weekend, rain or shine. They'd walk the trails, climb on the rocks, and stop at the pond to feed the ducks. Zara loved it, would talk to the ducks like they understood her, would make up elaborate stories about their secret lives. On a bright Saturday in late February, they were at the playground when a little boy around Zara's age asked if she wanted to play on the swings. His father stood nearby, tall with warm brown skin and kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. He introduced himself as Amir, and the boy as his son Yosef. New to the park? Amir asked while their kids raced toward the jungle gym. "We've been coming for a few months now. Saturday ritual," she replied. "Us too. Post-divorce tradition. Josiah lives with his mom during the week, so weekends are our time." There was no bitterness in his voice when he said divorce, just matter-of-fact acceptance. They talked while their children played, easy conversation about co-parenting and good schools and the best food trucks in the area. When it was time to leave, Amir pulled out his phone. "We should coordinate for a playdate sometime. Josiah could use more friends his age." Deandra entered his number and told herself it was just for the kids, just practical parenting networking. But when she got home and saw his text, "Great meeting you today. Same time next Saturday," she caught herself smiling for the first time in months. Valerie appeared at Deandra's office building on a Tuesday afternoon in early March. The receptionist called up to say someone was in the lobby asking for her, wouldn't give a name, said it was urgent and personal. Deandra knew before she went downstairs who it would be. Valerie stood near the security desk wearing sweatpants and an oversized coat, her box braids pulled back in a messy bun. She looked thinner than Deandra remembered, her face drawn and tired. The moment she saw Deandra step off the elevator, she rushed forward. "Please, I just need 5 minutes. Please just let me explain." Deandra kept her distance, aware of the security guard watching. "There's nothing to explain. I asked you not to contact me. You ruined my life over a mistake." Valerie's voice cracked, tears already streaming. "I lost my job. I can't get references. I had to move back in with my parents. All because you couldn't handle the fact that JJ and I fell in love. The audacity of the words, the reframing of months of calculated betrayal as some romantic inevitability, made something cold settle in Deandra's chest. She turned to the security guard. "This woman is harassing me. I need her removed from the building and banned from the property." "Deandra, please." Valerie tried to move closer, but the guard stepped between them. "We were best friends. How can you just throw that away? You threw it away when you slept with my child's father in my bed. Security, please remove her." Valerie was still crying, still calling Deandra's name as the guard escorted her toward the exit. Deandra didn't watch. She walked back to the elevator, rode it to her floor, and went straight to her supervisor's office to report the incident. Then she called Nanny Foster and filed for a restraining order. The order was granted within a week. Valerie was prohibited from coming within 500 feet of Deandra's home, workplace, or Zara's school. But JJ was harder to manage because he had legal rights to contact Deandra about their daughter. The problem was he rarely used that access to actually discuss Zara. Instead, the texts came late at night, after Deandra had gone to bed, when he'd clearly been drinking or spiraling or both. 2:47 a.m. "I miss you, baby. I miss us. We can fix this if you just stop being so stubborn." 3:13 a.m. "You were always working. Always too tired. What did you expect me to do?" 4:02 a.m. "You think you're better than me, but you're not. You're cold. You're the reason this family fell apart." Then, a week later, "I'm getting a lawyer. A real one. I'm fighting for full custody and I'm going to win. You can't keep Zara from me." Deandra forwarded every message to Nanny without responding. Her attorney had been clear: do not engage, do not defend yourself, do not give him anything he can twist in court. Just document and forward. The messages continued through March, a pattern of late-night rage and morning apologies, of blame and self-pity and empty threats. Deandra blocked his number except for a co-parenting app Nanny had recommended, one that logged all communication and couldn't be deleted. JJ didn't use the app. He kept texting from different numbers, friends' phones, burner apps. Each time, Deandra documented and forwarded. Then, on a Thursday night in late March, her building's front desk called at 11:34 p.m. The night security guard said there was a man in the lobby claiming to be her partner, demanding to be let up, clearly intoxicated and becoming aggressive. Deandra told them not to let him up and called the police. She watched from her window as 2 patrol cars arrived, watched as JJ stumbled out of the lobby entrance arguing with officers, watched as they administered a field sobriety test he clearly failed. They arrested him for public intoxication and disorderly conduct. The incident report arrived in Nanny's inbox the next morning. Her attorney called within an hour. "This just made our custody case significantly stronger. A parent who shows up drunk at your home in the middle of the night, harassing building staff, getting arrested in front of residential property where his child lives? That's not someone who's putting his daughter's well-being first." Deandra sat at her kitchen table with coffee going cold in front of her, staring at the police report. Part of her felt nothing, just the clinical satisfaction of documentation working in her favor. But another part, a smaller part she tried to ignore, felt something like grief. Not for JJ. Not for what they'd had. But for the man she'd once thought he might become, the father she'd hoped Zara would have. That man had never existed. And it was time to stop grieving someone who was never real. The custody hearing was scheduled for a Wednesday morning in late April at the D.C. Superior Court. Deandra wore a navy suit and pearl earrings, her natural curls styled professionally, her face calm despite the anxiety churning in her stomach. She'd prepared for this, had spent hours with Nanny reviewing every document, every piece of evidence, every possible question. JJ arrived 10 minutes late with a court-appointed attorney who looked fresh out of law school and already exhausted. JJ wore khakis and a button-down shirt that didn't quite fit, probably borrowed. He wouldn't meet Deandra's eyes as they took their seats on opposite sides of the courtroom. Judge Williams was a black woman in her 60s with silver hair and reading glasses that she peered over with the expression of someone who'd seen every variation of family drama and had patience for none of it. She reviewed the case file in silence for several minutes before looking up. JJ's attorney went first, and his strategy became clear within the first 5 minutes. He painted Deandra as a career-obsessed woman who'd pushed JJ out of their home in retaliation for a personal relationship that had nothing to do with parenting. He claimed Deandra was using Zara as a weapon, that she'd manufactured evidence and manipulated circumstances to destroy JJ's relationship with his daughter. "My client has been a present and active father since the day his daughter was born," the attorney said, his voice earnest. "He's been unjustly removed from the family home and denied access to his child because Ms. Woods couldn't accept that their romantic relationship had ended." Nanny didn't object, just made notes on her legal pad with a slight smile. When it was Nanny's turn, she stood and placed a binder on the table in front of the judge. "Your Honor, I've compiled documentation covering the past 18 months of parenting responsibilities. I think the evidence speaks for itself." The binder contained copies of every school document, every medical record, every extracurricular activity form. Every single one was signed only by Deandra. Emergency contact forms listed Deandra's number twice because JJ's phone was never reliable. Parent-teacher conference attendance sheets showed Deandra's name, meeting after meeting, for 5 years. Sick day documentation from Deandra's employer showing every time she'd had to leave work for Zara's doctor appointments, ear infections, stomach bugs. Nanny also presented the documentation log Deandra had kept over the past months. Every missed visitation. Every forgotten pickup. Every broken promise. All time-stamped, all saved, all irrefutable. Then came the questioning. Judge Williams asked JJ directly to name Zara's pediatrician. He couldn't. She asked for the name of Zara's kindergarten teacher. He guessed wrong. She asked who Zara's best friend at school was. He said he didn't know, but added that Zara had lots of friends. "Does your daughter have any allergies?" Judge Williams asked. He replied, "I don't think so." "She's allergic to amoxicillin," Deandra said quietly. "It's in her medical records." Judge Williams looked at JJ for a long moment. "Mr. Johnson, how many parent-teacher conferences have you attended in the past year?" "I mean, I don't remember exactly, but I went to some." "According to these records, you've attended 0 conferences in 5 years. 0 school events. 0 medical appointments." Judge Williams removed her glasses. "You've missed 4 out of your last 6 scheduled visitations with your daughter. You were arrested for public intoxication at Ms. Wood's residence. You've sent harassing text messages in the middle of the night. Can you explain to me why you believe you're entitled to joint custody?" JJ's attorney tried to intervene, but JJ was already talking, his voice rising. "Because she's my daughter. I have rights. Deandra just wants to punish me because I moved on. This is all because she can't accept that I'm happy with someone else." "You were happy with her best friend," Judge Williams said flatly. "In their shared home. While Ms. Woods was working to support your family. That's not moving on, Mr. Johnson. That's betrayal. And more importantly for this court, it shows profoundly poor judgment regarding your daughter's well-being and stability." The judge closed the file and rendered her decision without leaving the bench. Primary physical custody to Deandra. Supervised visitation for JJ every other Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., contingent on him maintaining stable housing and passing random drug tests administered by the court. Child support set at $400 per month, to be garnished from any wages he earned. JJ's face went red, then pale. His attorney tried to argue for reconsideration, but Judge Williams cut him off. "Mr. Johnson, you have an opportunity here to rebuild a relationship with your daughter. I suggest you take it seriously. This hearing is adjourned." Deandra walked out of the courthouse into spring sunshine, Nanny beside her, and felt something she hadn't felt in months: lightness. Not happiness, not yet, but the absence of the constant weight she'd been carrying. Valerie's lawsuit came and went like a bad joke. She filed in small claims court alleging defamation, claiming Deandra had maliciously destroyed her career by sending false information to her employer. Her attorney was someone she'd found online who worked out of a strip mall office. The hearing lasted 20 minutes. Nanny presented the time-stamped video evidence, the text messages, the documented pattern of behavior. Truth was an absolute defense against defamation, and every single thing Deandra had told Family First DC was verifiable and true. The judge dismissed the case with prejudice, meaning Valerie couldn't refile. She also ordered Valerie to pay Deandra's legal fees. Valerie didn't show up to the hearing. According to mutual friends, she'd moved to Baltimore and was working retail while trying to rebuild her life. Through all of it, through the court dates and legal fees and documentation, there was Amir. The Saturday park playdates had evolved into something more without either of them planning it. After a few weeks of playground conversations, he'd suggested getting coffee while the kids played. That became a regular thing, then occasional weekday texts about nothing important, funny memes and articles about parenting. Then one evening in March, after both kids were asleep at their respective homes, they'd met for dinner at a quiet Ethiopian restaurant in Adams Morgan. No kids, no playground. Just two adults who'd been through divorce and betrayal and were trying to figure out what came next. Amir talked about his ex-wife, about the slow death of a marriage that looked perfect from the outside. He talked about learning to co-parent with someone he no longer loved but still respected. He asked about Deandra's situation, and she told him the truth, not all of it but enough. "You're handling it with a lot of grace," he'd said. "I'm handling it with a lot of documentation and a good lawyer," she'd corrected, and he'd laughed, real and warm. By April, they were texting daily. By May, Zara and Josiah were asking for playdates multiple times a week. By June, they were spending Sunday mornings at the Eastern Market Farmers Market, the kids running ahead while Deandra and Amir walked slowly behind, talking about everything and nothing. It wasn't love yet. It was something quieter, something steadier. It was possibility. 14 months after Deandra opened that Nanny Cam app during her lunch break, she stood in her daughter's bedroom doorway on a quiet Tuesday evening and watched Amir read to Zara. He sat cross-legged on the floor beside her bed, holding a book about a princess who saved her own kingdom without waiting for a prince. Zara was already half asleep, her stuffed elephant tucked under her chin, but she was fighting to keep her eyes open to hear the end of the chapter. Amir's voice was soft and steady, nothing like JJ's impatient tone when he used to read to her, back when he bothered at all. When he finished the chapter, he closed the book and kissed Zara's forehead. She mumbled something about dragons and brave girls, already drifting off. He stood and followed Deandra into the hallway, pulling the door halfway closed behind him. They didn't say anything, just moved to the living room where his son Josiah was already asleep on the couch, having crashed during a movie earlier. This was what normal looked like now. Saturday visits with JJ at a supervised facility where he showed up mostly on time and tried, in his limited way, to be present for 6 hours every other week. Child support garnished automatically from the warehouse job he'd finally maintained for 3 months. Valerie somewhere in Baltimore, blocked on every platform, erased from their lives as completely as someone could be. And Deandra, thriving in ways she'd never imagined during those dark weeks of pretending everything was fine. The promotion to lead the Family Stability and Economic Security Initiative had come with a significant raise and the opportunity to shape policy that actually mattered. Every day she worked on programs supporting single mothers, economic mobility for families, childcare access. She thought about her own story. About how she'd almost stayed trapped in a situation that was slowly suffocating her. She'd protected Zara. She'd secured their home. She'd built something real from the wreckage of betrayal. And she'd learned the most important lesson. She didn't need JJ's half-hearted presence or Valerie's fake friendship. They had needed her, her stability, her grace, her ability to hold everything together while they took and gave nothing back. Now she was giving those gifts to people who deserved them. To her daughter, who was flourishing in first grade with confidence Deandra had never had at that age. To Amir, who showed up consistently, who parented actively, who treated her like a partner instead of a convenience. This wasn't just survival. This was resurrection. She died in that parking garage watching betrayal on a smartphone screen, and she'd chosen to rise from those ashes as someone stronger, clearer, unwilling to accept less than she deserved. That was the sweetest victory of all. Hit subscribe if you believe betrayers like JJ and Valerie deserve consequences, not second chances. Only cheaters, liars, and manipulators who side with people like them would scroll past without subscribing. Don't be complicit in their kind of evil. Subscribe if you stand with people who refuse to be victims. And if you can't stand fake friends who stab you in the back while smiling to your face, comment, "I stand for loyalty." Don't side with people like Valerie who use children as cover for their affairs. Be better than that.